a little point of interest here, for me anyway, in Jude is that he never writes about grace. He never references grace, but he does several times use the term mercy. And I've said this a gob of times before. I'll probably, every time I get a chance, I'll say it again, that the three great themes of all the Bible are justice, mercy, and grace. Justice, of course, is getting what I deserve, and grace is getting what I could not deserve. Mercy is not getting what I deserve. Well, Jude talks about mercy from God's perspective toward us and our perspective toward others. And I think that's that's part of the picture here for all three of these major themes. There are times when I am I'm going to be kind to myself and maybe to you and say there are times I'm tempted to execute justice, right? I'll do what I can to make sure they get what they deserve. Ooh, that's very dangerous. Very dangerous because of the law of echoes. What you send out is going to come back, right? Paul writes about the law of the harvest. And, you reap what you sow. Big theological thought from a huge impactful source, The Karate Kid, is what goes around comes around, which is true. So I want to be careful about justice because I'm not the judge. Now, I don't want to carry that too far where I say, well, justice is not my deal. I don't have to worry about it. No, I think I do need to. There's got to be some concern for justice. You can't create a safe, healthy, just society if you don't have some concern for justice. So yeah, justice, it's not bad. It's essential, and it's not an essential evil. Justice. Grace. I want to treat others with grace. I've been treated with grace. I want to treat others with grace. And the same with mercy. Here in verse 22, and then in verse 23, we've talked about 22. Be merciful to those who doubt. There it is, mercy. Be merciful. Show mercy to those who doubt. Save others by snatching them from the fire, which is an act of, really, that's an act of mercy. What you're doing is you're pulling them away from what their choices would, by justice, have gotten them, right? They would have got burned. Okay, so, and then he says, to others, show mercy mixed with fear. Okay, that's where we stopped last time for good reason, because that's kind of that's a toughie. What does it look like to show mercy mixed with fear? Now, showing mercy, we don't very often dwell on that, so what does that look like? But it's a little easier for me anyway, to think about, okay, doing what I can to save someone from the just consequences of their behaviors and their choices. That's what mercy is. Mercy is not getting what I deserve. And can I pass that along to someone else? Yes, I can. However, and I know this is real self-evident and it's so obvious, but I'm going to say it anyway. If my first concern is justice, I won't be interested in mercy. Just, duh. Well, here's the thing. Can I be interested in societal justice and yet on a personal level be more interested in mercy? I think so. It'd take me a long time to parse that out, but in my life and in my opinion, I think it is possible. I think it's even healthy. If my first concern in my own personal life is justice, I'm going to be looking for a way to drop the hammer. And that's not a very good way to live. So mercy, what does that look like? It's a reach, but not an impossible reach, okay? Mixed with fear. How do you mix mercy with fear? Okay, I see a couple possibilities. One is, I'm going to show you mercy, but first I'm going to put the fear of God in you, right? Sometimes parents will use this as a tactic in trying to punish and then discipline their children. I'm going to be, first, I'm going to make sure you got to be afraid first, right? Because you broke the rule. And if you're going to do the crime, you got to pay the time, right? There's punishment and you're going to get it. Boy, are you going to get it. The fear of being punished, right? And then maybe, all right, I'm going to let you off, but you better know I didn't have to let you off. Okay, in that sense, what we're trying to do is use fear as a motivation for obedience. And it can be. It has a short shelf life, but it can be early on, initially effective. So that's one possibility. Show mercy mixed with fear. Another has to do with another interpretation of fear, which would be reverent awe. The fear of God is a concept. I touched on it a time or two. It's in the Bible. It's not just in the Old Testament, it's also in the New Testament. The fear of God is a legitimate subject to dwell on and think about and figure out. But it's difficult, right? As I said, fear can be a very effective short-term motivator. But over the long haul, fear is just not going to get you home. Fear, on a human level, I once read, and how they figure these statistics out, I don't have a clue. It leads me to believe they're just estimates, but since it serves my purpose, I'm going to use it as though it were an actual verifiable statistic anyway. It said that 85% of what we're afraid of doesn't actually happen. I can tell you in my own life, most of what my anxieties are about do not happen. Here's another thing. Anxiety is not about this moment. Anxiety is about what might happen somewhere in the future. If I can focus on this moment, my life hasn't ended. The world's not crashing down around me. If I could focus on this moment and push aside my fear of what might happen in the future, my level of anxiety would reduce. I have trouble getting that to work, but I think just on a philosophical level, that ought to work. Fear of God, though. Well, I'll go back to something I use all the time, and that's my first encounter as an adult with the Grand Canyon. When I was a kid, I was about 11 or 12. My family drove from Kansas to California, and we stopped at the Grand Canyon. And I remember it being a real deep gorge, and I'm a kid, I'm a boy, I wanted to throw something off and watch it fall, and even way back there in the 60s, they didn't really encouraged that. And then in the year 2000, Debbie and I got to visit the Grand Canyon for the first time in our adult lives. And friends of ours, Don Bew, set us up so that we would get there as the sun went down, and it was breathtakingly glorious. And as I looked at the wonder and the beauty and the glory of this amazing landmark, the fingerwork of God, I thought, if you look down into this canyon, and then you look left and you look right, and you don't have a little bit of fear for the one who did this, you're just not right in the head. How do you not be afraid of the one who did all that? We have thunderstorms here in Oklahoma pretty often in the summertime, and I'm not a big fan of thunder and rain, but when you look at lightning, you see lightning, you hear the thunder, you see the rainfall, you're not afraid of the one who, there's only two choices in my opinion. Either he causes it or he permits it, and you're not afraid of that one? What's wrong with you? So there is this aspect of fear that it has to do with, actual being afraid. And yet then there's this other side of it where you have this awe-filled reverence for God. I think the prophets who spoke in the Old Testament, the apostles who spoke in the New Testament, I think that the second kind of fear is the greater fear for them. This awesome respect. I don't fear my wife, Debbie. And not because she couldn't hurt me, because boy, could she ever. But here's where my fear falls in that, is that I would do something that would injure her physically, but much more importantly, emotionally, in a way as to harm our relationship. I don't want to do that. I want this relationship to be intact, healthy, growing. That's a part of this whole thing of fear of God, is I am a realist in lots of different ways, and I realize that when I disobey, there are always consequences, and generally the initial consequence of disobedience is not positive or happy. That I don't want. I fear that I will slip over, drift over, lunge headlong into that. But there's this other side to that then I will experience a breach in relationship. Is it from God's point of view? No, it's from my point of view. I don't want to do that. So, but none of this yet explains how we mix mercy and fear, a legitimate mixture of mercy and fear. Save others by snatching them from the fire, to show others mercy mixed with fear. He goes on, and this might give us a little sense. Hating even the clothing stained by corrupted flesh. This is metaphorical. This is not literal. It's not about, boy, get that shirt off, it's stinking, we're going to wash it, we're going to clean it up. No. This is a purely symbolic statement. Hating even the clothing stained by corrupted flesh has to do with the idea that when we go our own way, the Bible generally, I can't think of a time when this is not the case in the Bible, refers to that as going with our flesh, fleshly desires. The flesh generally, unless there are contexts in which it is just, you know, skin, bone, muscle, sinew, fat. And you get, the change of order happens there. But anyway, when it's not just talking about the physical flesh, which is frankly much less often, it is talking about the propensity to go our own way, to disregard God's design. And, you know, the old-fashioned term for that, sin. When I sin, I'm working from the flesh. And that's the meaning here that Jude is attaching to this. And it's like here, we hate even the clothing stained by the corrupted flesh. We don't hate the person. We hate the clothing. We hate what this part of their life that has been contaminated by their choice to follow the flesh, to sin. Whew. Man, I've dug a hole here that I'll never be able to climb out of. But I'm going to give it another shot next time on Soul Care with Stevie Boy, because I'm way past the time limit. I'll see you then, I hope.